Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players, uncover their stories, and discover what makes them tick. If you love guitar, music, and the backstory of people's lives, stick around. You're in the right place. Hi, this is Craig. Just want to let you know you can now advertise here on Everyone Loves Guitar podcast. For more information, go to everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. Hey, everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. And we've got a really cool, really interesting guest. We've got special import from Serbia. We're with Rale Micic. He's one of the most successful and critically acclaimed jazz musicians, as I said, to emigrate here from Serbia. He's released 5 solo albums, and his music is a mix of jazz and haunting melodies from the Balkans. That's what the bio says. But let me tell you, just to take a 5-minute detour, I really enjoyed his music. I'm not typically a jazz guy, but I really loved his playing and his music. The melodies were a little dark, which is kind of stuff I like. Great melodies. Guitar playing is beautiful. It gets a great tone. So if you even remotely are in the world of guitar, check his music out, and we'll talk about it today. Raleigh's been featured in numerous publications, including Downbeat, Jazz Times, LA Times, San Diego Tribune, Boston Globe. He's performed at prominent jazz clubs and music festivals in the U.S. and Europe, like the Village Vanguard, Catalina Jazz Club, Blues Alley, Scullers Jazz Club, Dizzy, Smalls, San Jose Jazz Festival, the Hartford International Jazz Festival, and he is also coming up. He's got a gig in February, which is a little bit after this is going to air, at the Zinc Bar, which is a pretty famous jazz place downtown. And another reason I like him so much is because he's living in New York City. So there you go. Thanks for coming on the show, Rale. I appreciate it.
Sure, my pleasure.
What was the situation like in Serbia when you moved here, and what prompted the move?
Well, I moved in the United States in 1995, and the situation was pretty bad. I have to say it was pretty dark times, especially early 90s. There was war that affected the country I was living in. That used to be called Yugoslavia. And the war was actually in Bosnia. It was never in Serbia, but we were all affected by it. So the early 90s, which was basically when I was in high school, it was pretty dark. But one of the reasons that I got actually into the jazz, besides just hearing it, on the records, is that during that time, all of a sudden there were a lot of jazz clubs in Belgrade, which is the capital of Serbia, where I'm from. And it was kind of like a safe place to go. You have these jazz clubs and there are people who are very interested in arts, and nobody will bother you. You get to listen to the music. And it was very special for that time. And I kind of realized it only happened then, that there were so many clubs. And then later, some of them disappeared. But it was interesting.
That's really cool. What was the atmosphere like when you moved musically in Serbia, and has that changed now?
Well, there was always an active music scene, and speaking of jazz, a jazz scene as well in Serbia, because even though Yugoslavia was communist country, it was never pro-Russia, so it was always pro-Western. So we had always jazz on the radio. There was Voice of America, even in 60s and 50s. We had jazz festivals there. So I think there was always a healthy dose of really modern jazz coming from the United States. So the musicians are really up to date and they played pretty well. So the scene was pretty good. And I think it's good nowadays as well. Yeah.
It's interesting how some, even a more restrictive government would recognize the arts and allow that to flourish. Isn't that?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It's one of the only places that would, in Balkans and Eastern Europe, they had that. I mean, the other places Bulgaria and, the neighboring countries that were under Russia, they couldn't have that. I mean, so it was, I guess we were lucky in that sense,
Did you ever hear of a guy called A.G. Weinberger?
No.
He was from Hungary, and I interviewed him, and he said the same thing. It was really restrictive over there at the time.
Yeah, Hungary is very restrictive. Yeah, but there's some great players from there too. Attila Zoller and Gabor Sabo, some guitar players from Hungary too.
Yeah.
But sometimes being restricted makes you do something that otherwise maybe you wouldn't do if it wasn't restricted, like makes it like even more inviting because of that.
Well, that's what happened with him. He became like a kind of a rebel, and he sort of like brought blues he got arrested. It was kind of a cool story, but it was like, that's what the allure. He used to be like, on doing black market stuff. So it was just an interesting story. So,
yeah.
So you come to the States, like, what did you do for work when you first, and I'm assuming you didn't speak English.
Well, I did. I spoke some English. I mean, we learned English in school, and I was, I was really immersed in, culture that was in English, like the movies I was watching and the music I was listening to is all in English, so I was exposed to it.
Okay.
For a while, and I learned it in school. But when I came to the United States in '95, I came to study. I got a scholarship from Berklee College of Music in Boston.
Okay, awesome.
And I came here to study. Actually, I came here to study jazz composition and and guitar. So yeah, but I think I wasn't like really. I mean, I knew English. I wasn't fluent, of course, but it wasn't a problem. There was no like language barrier.
That's great. Did you meet any guys in Berklee, either students or professors that you're still friendly with now that are out there in the scene making music?
Oh yeah, sure. Actually, a lot of people I work with, I met back then. I would say probably like 50% of people I work with are still, from that time. It's great. I mean, Berklee was a really great experience. It's very international school.
Yeah.
I think it's more than 50% of students are international. So it's a great community, especially for jazz. It's a famous jazz school. So it's great, and some connections you make during your studies, kind of last you the lifetime. You make friends and and musicians that think alike, musically and personally. So it's great.
Can you name a couple of guys or people that you were hooked up with there? Did you meet Cheryl there?
Sure. I mean, no, Cheryl actually met in New York. Although she does teach now at Berklee. She was there, I think, before me. But during my time, who was there? Okay, the bass player I played with a lot, Peter Slavov. He plays with Joe Lovano now, and Bob Reynolds. He used to play in my band. He's a saxophone player. He plays with Joe Mayer and Snarky Puppy, and lot of people. Henry Scott is a drummer, and Walter Smith, a tenor player. I mean, like there's like whole
loads of people.
Musicians. They were like there, like end of '90s when I was there. That they're like very active now on the scene.
Was Tomo Fujita there?
Yes, he was. He was teacher there when I was there.
That's
yes.
what I thought. Yeah, he had a good story too. He got a scholarship to come over, but when he came, he didn't speak a lick of English.
Right. Yeah, I did. Yeah, but it was it was interesting because when I came there, the only reason I came is because scholarship that made it really happen for me. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to. I don't think I'd be able to afford a school or living in the United States. But it was great. It was really like kind of like a dream come true for me, like to come and study here. Even though I have to say I never had like American dream. I really want to go to America and live there. I was really just interested in music and learning about the music. Yeah. So that's how I moved here. Did
you move to New York right after you graduated?
I moved 1 year. I stayed in Boston after I finished my school, and then I moved so I finished in '99, and I moved in 2000 in New York. So I didn't wait too long. I was working for a year. I was working in Boston. I was pretty busy. I was gigging around and teaching a little bit, but then I was making like a lot of trips to New York. Even during that time, I wasn't living here, but I knew this is the place I want to be.
Right. So you were making trips to the city to gig?
Well, just coming out here and just here, being in the session, going to jazz clubs and meeting people.
Right.
I wasn't really gigging here in New York. That year, I was just coming here and I was just blown away of the level of musicianship, and I was here and it was like, okay, I really got to move here. I don't have any, this is obvious.
I hear you. When you first got here, were there like some of the bigger cultural differences between back home and here in the States?
That's an interesting question. I'm not quite sure. I mean, I think it was, as I mentioned, since I came to a school that was very international, I think those cultural differences were not as obvious because I was surrounded by people from everywhere, really from, any place in the earth. I mean, really, it was like there were people from Asia, from Africa, from Europe, from, South America. I mean, like Australia, everywhere. So it didn't seem so bad. And also, like, even nowadays, I feel like living here in New York.
Of course.
It's not
it's the same
really
thing.
the same, as the rest of the United States. So I have to say I never had that kind of shock.
Yeah.
I think I was more shocked when I was like starting to travel and tour different places in the United States. Oh, then I realized, okay, it's really some things are really different,
Oh, New York is not like the rest of the whole.
Yeah.
But you know what? That's one of the things I really appreciate about living there is growing up with people from like everywhere, just like you said. And I never had a problem interacting or understanding accents or, it's just cool because everybody's from, it's like you're used, that's normal for you, And I
agree. I mean, that's the way it should be anyway.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. It's totally, oh man, absolutely. You play with some great people. I was curious if I'd throw out a couple of names, if you could talk about how you get the gig working with them and maybe a cool or interesting story if you have one. Tom Harrell, trumpet and flugelhorn, obviously.
Yeah. Tom Harrell, I mean, like I'm a huge fan of Tom Harrell. He's like one of my idols, really. And I met Tom. I came to some of his gigs and I met him. I think I met him in 2005. And I was always blown away by his playing and musicianship and his writing and just, who he is musically. I gave him the CD. I recorded my first record that I recorded called Bridges. I gave him that and remember, I gave him maybe like, I don't know, I forgot when it was, but I think it's 2005. And I remember like his wife, Angela Harrell, sent me an email, almost 2 days after he was on the plane. He said, we were traveling to Europe on a tour, and Tom was kind of blown away by the CD, and he really wants to work with you. And I was like,
holy
wow.
shit, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, so it was really great. It was like that kind of response. So, gave me a lot of confidence.
Wow.
And we, because I had a project I had in mind, doing with Tom, and we recorded a record. It's called Serbia. And the record did really well. It's also featuring Bob Reynolds, tenor player, who I mentioned earlier. Also, great drummer Gregory Hutcherson and Sean Conley, the bass player. And it's, I felt that there was really a special moment for me to be able to work with one of my idols. And so we did a record. People can check it out. I love the record still to this day, how it sounds. And we were also touring with that group, which was unbelievable to have Tom Harrell in the band. That was like a really dream come true for me.
That is so cool.
And then, so it's great. So, and then later on, I was part of Tom's band as well. I did a record with him a few years back, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. It's called First Impressions, and it's a really great project. Tom did, he basically had his quintet, his working quintet with bass, drums, tenor, and trumpet, and then he added flute, cello, violin, and I played actually a nylon string classical guitar, and he did music of Ravel and Debussy, like in
Holy
jazz
crap.
version. And it's really it's probably one of the most amazing projects I've ever been part of. It was most challenging too, but it was just it was great. So, and we were also playing with that group for a little while, and it was just fantastic experience.
That's so cool. That's a great story. Yeah. And everybody, so let me tell you where you can check out the record. It's called Serbia, and go to Raleigh's website. And Raleigh spells his name R-A-L-E. So if you're not going to be an idiot like me, the first time I called him, I said, "Hey, Rale, how are you?"
I get it a lot.
I'm sure. I felt like such an idiot. I apologize.
Hey, it can be any way,
Yeah, so go to his website. It's RaleMicic.com and check out the record Serbia that he's talking about there with Tom Harrell. Delfeo Marsalis, trombone. How did that come
Yeah, Delfeo, I played with him. I didn't know him well. We met through a mutual friend, drummer Jeff Clapp, who's a great drummer. He's from North Carolina originally. He lived a little bit in New York, and then he lived for a while in New Orleans. And Jeff put a group together, which was kind of like a really great group. We played some festivals and some gigs. And it was Delfeo, and it was also Jason Marsalis in that band. He played vibraphone in that band, and that's how we got. That's how we met, and that's where we were. So it was a great experience working with him. He's really one of the really great trombone players. Probably one of my favorites.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you know a drummer in the city named Tony Lewis?
Tony Lewis, I don't.
Yeah, just curious. He's a guy I grew up with. He's been playing. He's been gigging for, he's my age, so he's been around for a long time. You guys probably just didn't travel in the same circles.
Probably, yeah.
You've played at some really good venues. Any one of them a favorite, or does anyone have any special significance for you?
Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, I know my favorite venue is Village Vanguard. That's like, that's easy.
Yeah.
It's it's really like the jazz club. I mean, it's like the best jazz club. It's as authentic as it can be. It's been there since 40s. It's still in the same location, still the same place, still the same stage that all the greats played in. John Coltrane, Miles Davis, you name it, Sonny Rollins, Billy Evans, and a lot of those people did records there as well. So it's really like iconic place. So that has to be my number one place.
Very cool. That's down on like 7th Avenue or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been there a couple of times.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've done a lot of cool stuff and you got a lot of stuff going on. Was there anything in particular that you're working on right now that you're excited about?
Yes. I two things I'm working on right now. I'm working on a project called Inspired, and that's a beautiful project that honors a great jazz guitar player legend, Jim Hall, who passed away some years ago. And the project was conceived by having the 4 different guitar players from kind of like different generations, different backgrounds, even kind of different stylistically, who were influenced by Jim Hall. So we did an album together, and the album featured one of my idols too, who's John Abercrombie, who passed away last year. He was on it, Peter Bernstein, Lage Lund,
right,
who's a Norwegian guitar player, and myself. So we did some of Jim's music, and it was just, guitars, no rhythm section, no drums, no bass. And it was just a great project. So, we played there's some pieces that we played all 4 of us together. We did like a lot of duos. Everybody played with each other, like duos, 2 guitars, and each one of us did a solo guitar piece on that record. So that's a project that's pretty active now, even though it came out last year, I believe. And then we did the CD release party at the Blue Note, which was a lot of fun. And
that's a pretty good story. You think about, you grew up in Serbia when they're having a war, and now you're doing CD release parties at the Blue Note.
Oh, I'm listening.
It's a really good success.
I'm very lucky.
That's a great success story, man.
Yeah, but it's great, and that project has been really great. So that's one of the things that I'm doing. We're actually going on the road. We're going to be doing a tour in Italy next week. Well, this is going to be in November once your listeners hear this in December. But it's the first time we're taking this project in Europe, and I hope to bring it there more. And another project that I'm working is a duo with a fantastic Spanish piano player. His name is Abe Rabade, and he's from the northwest of Spain. And he's a great jazz pianist and a flamenco pianist as well. So we did a project together that's kind of eclectic, playing different styles of music with some jazz and flamenco influenced music. We also did some of the Serbian traditional music and also some Spanish traditional music and some jazz standards. So it's a really cool project, and that's due. The record is due next year, like sometime mid next year. I don't know the date yet. I think it's May or June.
Awesome.
And that's been great. We had some performances recently. We played in the Carnegie Hall in September.
That's cool.
Which was great. It was a sold out show, and it was a lot of fun. So I'm looking.
Wait a minute, just the 2 of you guys sold out Carnegie Hall?
It was a project. It was. That evening was actually interesting. It was evening that had the 5 feature artists, and the theme of that night was the Serbian music. So I was one of the invited artists to perform, and I invited Abe to come from Spain to perform with me. And that night, so there was 5 different groups, so to say. So, but it was really a fantastic night. Yeah.
Man, I'm writing this down. So,
okay.
No, I mean, you grew up look where you came from, man. You've sold out Carnegie Hall. You've played at the Vanguard. You had a CD launch at the Blue Note. That's awesome, man. Anybody, because I always hear people bitching about, I can't do this, I can't do that. And I'm like, okay.
Right. Well,
if you think you can't, you can't.
everybody can't, like it's easy to say, but I mean, listen, I have to say, like, it's not always easy. Nobody says it was easy, and
Sure.
it takes a lot of work, and takes a lot of, I think, patience the most. As an artist, we have kind of different timing. I have to say, like, I think I realized that's like in a sense that we expect things to be at a different time than it's really realistic, and I learned to live with that. And then once you figure that out, then it's okay. You expect certain things to happen, but it doesn't happen where you want them to happen. They happen when they're supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Sort of, so that's one of the things I learned, like over the years, and I'm okay with it. Just as long as I get a chance to perform and make music, I'm really thankful and happy.
Yeah. It's not just artists. I think it's everybody that is a type A personality and works really hard and likes it, because I'm the same way. And I learned that thing as well, that, it doesn't happen on my schedule. It happened.
Right. Yeah.
And that was kind of liberating when I accepted that, because it actually took a lot of stress off me.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I agree. It's totally liberating. Because there's a lot of, you expect certain things. I mean, listen, I've been in New York for a long time, and I've been working. It's not always the case that you get a gig, at the club that you really like. It took me a long time until, I was in New York for a long time until I played those clubs. So it's and I'm sure I wanted to play them right away when I moved,
Of course,
but from looking from this perspective, I probably wasn't even ready to do that yet,
right.
But in your mind, you're thinking, oh yeah, I am.
Let me ask you this. In 1976, I played at Carnegie Hall with the Bronx Borough-wide. I played saxophone back then.
Oh, nice.
And we had to sign in. Do they still have you do that? Like, there's this massive, giant, like 3 telephone books put together thing. Can you do that still?
For the artists?
Yeah, everybody you didn't have to, but you had the option of signing this big ass giant book.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't do that. I know some places have that. I didn't do it.
They probably don't
I don't know
have.
if they still have it, or they didn't care for us to sign it.
No, believe me, they wouldn't have been. They probably don't have it anymore, because I've asked. I asked somebody else who played there, maybe Doug Womble, someone in the city that played there actually, and they said they didn't have that either, so they just must have taken it away.
Well, and now everything's going digital anyway. Yeah. But I think it's a cool thing to have. I know some clubs that have that, and and it's nice because you go back and flip the pages, you find some artists like, oh my god, I can't believe this guy is like here like 20 years ago, and it's amazing,
Yeah, it
kind of gives you perspective. I like those things because it gives you perspective. You see like who was there before you, and I think it's a cool thing. But they didn't have it now.
The other thing we did, I don't know if you did this, like I was a kid then, I was like 13. We there was like 5 or 6 kids on the stage, and then a bunch of us went like into the last row on top, and we talked to each other, and you really didn't have to scream. The acoustics there are so good. And then we switched places.
Yeah, that's one of the best places to play. Acoustically, it's unbelievable. I played without an amp. I played like a classical guitar that evening, and they didn't have an amp, and it was perfect. I was really like, I was very nervous, and like, wait, I'm playing with a huge piano. This is going to be and it was phenomenal. It was really great. So it's like, you cannot pull that off on any other place.
Wow. You didn't play with an amp. That is amazing.
No amp. Yeah, no amp. Yeah.
Holy crap. And everybody heard it great.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I was really scared, so, I had somebody play during the sound check, and I went all the way in the back and sounded even better than it did on the stage.
It's amazing.
Like
the
way it projects is like just amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool.
But it's that's a place like that was built for acoustic instruments. It's actually sometimes it sounds better than if you amplify it or mic it, because it would just create like a mess.
That's amazing though, man. That's a big venue to play without an amp. What was your childhood like growing up in Serbia?
Well, I guess I had a relative, like usual childhood. I have to say I had a good childhood in terms of, I don't know, like I felt it was just the ordinary childhood. I was happy. I had great parents. I was able to do what I liked. I started playing music pretty early on. When I was 7 years old, I started playing violin.
Oh, wow.
My grandfather, who was like a huge classical music fan, got me into playing violin, and he had a friend of his who was a conductor, and he helped me find a good teacher. And I played violin for a while. I played it maybe for 4 years. I was decent, but I never really liked it that much,
Sure.
I never really connected. It was a very hard instrument. I felt it was really hard. Because, anytime, in violin, just to get intonation, it's super hard. And, I can hear it, I could hear it. My ears were good enough that to figure out my fingers weren't. you know what I mean? It was one of those things. So, and then luckily that teacher retired. And I used it as an excuse. I'm like, okay, you know what? I can't study with anybody else, which was like, of course, lie.
That's great.
But I was like to my parents, like, oh, I can't. I'm so attached to this guy. He doesn't teach. He's retired. I'm done with this.
That's clever.
And I switched to guitar, and that was like super easy. I'm like, wow, I was in heaven with between violin and guitar. I was like, man, what was I thinking? This is so easy. You have frets. You play 3 chords. Everybody loves it. And within 2 months of playing guitar, I actually joined a pretty popular, a punk rock band.
That's great.
Which probably most of people don't know about me, but I think I was 14. And I went to a friend of mine was playing there, and he invited me to a rehearsal, and I brought my guitar with me, and I played a song, and they were like, "Oh my God, I played better than any of them." He was like, "Why would you want to join us?" I was like, "Yeah, sure."
Wow.
So I started playing with them as a 14, and it was funny because I was pretty short, and I remember playing one festival, and the guy, I played like a Strat, and the guy came after our set, and he says, "Oh man, I have exact same guitar, but only smaller," and because I was so tiny that my guitar looked huge. He thought it was just like a bigger version of a Strat. He's like, what is that? But I was so small. I have some pictures. It's so funny. I can barely hold that thing.
That's hilarious, man.
Yeah, but it was a lot of fun playing that group. Gave me a really good experience. And I was traveling, and my parents were totally okay with that. Being so young. I didn't skip school or anything, but it was a fun period. Just to connect with instrument on a level where you get to perform it and get to see how people like the music on it. It was a very different experience than playing violin, But I also studied the classical guitar in the same time.
Okay.
And I did in Serbia we have elementary music school and high school music school that you can do in the same time as you do the regular school. So you learn how to play instruments, you do music theory, you do solfege. So I finished that, but I was pretty advanced, so I finished a little bit faster. So I caught up with my generation. I think I did in 2 years, I did 6 years of elementary for guitar, and then
wow.
Start doing high school. But then I loved classical guitar. I loved the music, but then I felt it's really my heart was not in it. That's when start playing more electric guitar, and I got interested in jazz, and that's how basically I made a switch and never went back.
Man, it amazes me how you're growing up in a communist country. Punk music is okay. They have special schools just for and we are supposedly the freest country in the world, and arts are non-existent here.
It's, sometimes you think about
it's crazy.
Kind of and the amazing thing
really
about
sad.
that was all those schools, the music schools, were free.
Yeah.
You can enroll if you have a talent. They do a test, which is kind of not easy to pass, but if you have a good ears and want to learn, you can get in, and they're free. They're 100% free. You don't pay for a single thing.
Yeah.
Which was one of the amazing things about, I guess, the idea of socialism, to have things available for everybody.
Yeah.
So, and that was pretty amazing,
It's interesting. I've interviewed a bunch of guys from Sweden. There's a lot of really good guitar music out of Sweden, electric guitar out of Sweden.
Yeah.
And they have these schools there, and they're available for everybody, not just for music, but any kind of art that you want to be involved with. And they encourage you to go to school, and they devote a lot of money to the arts. And they feel, I've talked to some of them, and they feel that also does a lot to keep kids off the streets, because they're involved. It
does, sure. Yeah, I mean, listen, you don't have, it's pretty much, that's your day, you go to school in the morning, in the afternoon, you go to the music school,
right.
That's pretty much it, But if you love it, it's great,
Yeah.
It's a wonderful thing to do,
Did you have any brothers and sisters? You grew up with any?
Yeah, I do have a sister, yes. I have an older sister who's 3 years older than me.
Is she still over there, or does she come here with this?
Yeah, she lives in Serbia. Like my parents are still, in Serbia, and she's still there. She has a family there. She was here last month.
Oh, cool.
She came to visit, and she hasn't been here like in a long time, maybe like 10 years or so.
Oh, wow.
Great to have her around. Yeah, it was.
That's really cool.
Yeah. We are very close, and then it was great to have her here. So.
Do you get to go back to Serbia often?
I do. I try to. I try to keep my connections there as far as family, and I also have kids, so I try them to be part of that culture as well.
Sure.
Because their grandparents on both sides are there in Belgrade, Serbia. So we try to get them as often as we can.
You have kids here in the States, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm married.
Good for you, man. How old are your kids?
I have 3 kids.
Oh my God, you're
the oldest
for punishment.
16, the middle one is 13, and the youngest is 8. So
wow, that's not
busy.
Yeah, man, that's close to me. Mine are 10 years. Mine are 28, 26, and 18. So it's kind of
same,
very close.
Yeah.
So you're not going to be like really free for like 10 years. Yeah. No, ever for sure. But like you got 10 years of like, a little bit of I don't know what your kids are like, but 10 years of, it was pretty rough for us, man. They're all fine now, but it was a rough time.
It can be challenging in certain times, but it's also a remarkable thing. They're great, great kids. But yeah, definitely, it's a game changer. Is that what they say?
Yeah, but you know what? I will also tell you, and I've had this conversation. A good friend of one of my closest friends lives in San Diego, and he's Lebanese, and we've been business partners on a couple of projects over the years. And we had this conversation. I think ethnic families that are not from the States, there is a different standard of I think you guys have less problems with your kids overall. And
I don't know. I'm not sure if that's that's the case. I mean, talking about, you asked me earlier, talking about cultural differences. That's the one thing I notice that most is that, my kids were born here, they're growing up here. I feel like, I cannot really fully understand them in a sense of culture, because I wasn't raised here. I didn't grow up here.
Yeah.
So it's just, even though I understand here, I love it here. And, I've been living here more than a half of my life here. I think that's the main difference, somebody growing up here and not, So as far as expectations, I don't know. I mean, I think it goes from, family to family or person to person. Everybody's different.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody has it easier or harder. I mean, one thing that's hard for us as a family, I believe, is that it's just me and my wife and the kids, and the rest of our family is really overseas,
right.
Back in Europe. So that's probably the toughest thing, They don't get to see their grandparents as often as they could, as often as I did. I grew up with my grandparents. I was there all the time with them. It was great.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit less pressure on the parents, and on the kids because they get to chill out with the grandparents. So it's a different dynamic.
Yeah.
So, and then sometimes I feel because of that, maybe the relationship can be more intense because it's just the parents and the kids, and they want them to, be well and succeed and whatnot. And especially if the parents didn't grow up in that environment, they feel even more, urged to, to help them and be, supportive in certain way, but, maybe even over too much,
Oh, too much. Well, just to make you feel a little better, I don't understand, or I didn't understand my kids either, and I'm from here.
Right. Yeah. Well,
just to let you know, especially because like my 2 older ones, they didn't grow up with cell phones.
Right.
Which was great. So we had more FaceTime. My daughter is like, you have FaceTime, but just on the phone. Like she'll text me. She's next door, and she's like, "Dad," and I'm like, So I had to get you. So it's the same thing. I don't think I had to. But we were the same way. My wife is from the UK. I don't really have any family, so it was us and the 3 kids all the time, and it is a lot of work, man. Because you need a break. You need a break. 3 kids. You need a fucking break.
And they need it too, man.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. No, they do for sure, man. So, but now it's cool because my older one has a daughter. So my granddaughter comes over to our house she hangs out with us, and they get a little break and stuff like that. So it's a little more normalized for them. So, but I totally get you, man. I totally get you. To the point where it's amazing you're still together at the end of it, because it's so stressful at times. It was for us anyway. I mean, it was really
right. Yeah. I mean, I remember, I always remember my mom saying this thing, about the marriage. She said, your marriage is really put to a test 2 times in your life. First time is when you get the kids, and the second time is when the kids leave your house.
Yes, it's very true.
So, if your relationship is good, and you get the kids, everything's okay. And the same thing, when they leave the house, then you're okay. And it's really true, it can change and affect people in different, the way they didn't expect, But I feel I'm lucky, with Alma, who's my wife, we have a great relationship, and we kind of understand each other better than we do our kids, I guess. So we work well as a unit.
That's cool. Yeah, we're the same way. It's and it's funny you say that, because both our kids are out of the house, our older ones, and about 4 years ago, I was sitting down on a Sunday morning, and I'm the same with Ann, my wife, and we get along great. I'm really lucky. We have a lot of fun together. And I said, man, I could see why people get divorced now, because it's just me and you right here. And there's literally nothing.
Right.
There's nothing.
Because, I guess you take and you put so much effort and time into raising kids. That's kind of everything else becomes secondary.
Yes.
And that's goes for a while, as you said, at least 18 years. That's a long period of time.
Hell yeah! And you change a lot, and the other person changes a lot in that time.
Yeah, sure.
And I never forget that. I said, and I was really happy. I said, I'm glad we're glad we're alone now. I mean, seriously, not like I don't like my kids, but it's just like, hey, we're enjoying our privacy, and
get your life back.
Yeah. But I felt lucky that we're still got that connection, because if not, I could see being miserable. Your music, it's a very, like I said, it's dark, but it's kind of like a bluesy. It's a very warm feeling. It's a very warm tone, very warm melodies, a little dark at time, and I mean that, like I said, in a really good way. What was your influence for that, or how did you? That's a really unique style of playing I have not heard at all.
Well, thank you. Well, I don't know. I mean, the influence is hard to tell. I mean, I guess who you are and where you're coming from and all those things go in consideration, and probably I'm not as aware as somebody else listening to me how it sounds to them, because I have my own perspective, and what I see is probably very different from the people who are listening to my music. But I was influenced by a lot of things. I was, as I said, I started as a classical trained kid. I played a lot of classical music. I played in rock and punk bands in my teenage years. I listened to that music as well. I still do, sometimes nowadays. And I got really, into jazz, and that's probably my biggest influence. And because I became a jazz guitarist. So they're in different phases. You have different influences. But I know there are a few artists in particular that influenced me. One of the guys, as I mentioned, is John Abercrombie, a guitarist, and he was really one of the guys who kind of developed a different sound on the guitar. Wasn't really like a bebop player, and he developed a very melodic and lyrical way of playing. Used a lot of space in his playing.
You do, yeah. You have a lot of space in your playing.
Well, I try to, yeah. I mean, honestly, I have to say, I try to make music that I think I can enjoy listening to, rather than try and make music because I can play this thing, and let me play it because I can,
Yeah.
So, and I think the older I get and more experience I get, the more I want of that, because first you feel like, I have to prove certain things, on your instrument, and, how good you are, but really how good you are is what kind of music are you making, and I try to write. And I try to play the music that I think anybody can enjoy, like somebody who never heard the jazz in their life, or somebody who never heard Serbian music in their life can relate to it, And if I hopefully I can I can get that, So stylistically, I play with a lot of jazz musicians, so I would say it definitely sounds like a jazz, but I want to make just music, That's my goal,
Well, I really enjoyed listening. You have a great groove and. Great groove and really nice the tone, the music is warm, and your tone is also very warm.
Yeah,
so
I have to say,
really
like, for the tone, I guess, look, one of the also influences is Jim Hall. I mean, Jim Hall really is like probably my number one influence as far as playing, and and he's the guy who also inspired John Abercrombie and many guitarists after his time. Just certain way of playing and being very musical, being also very in the moment. Like reacting who you're playing with, reacting what's going on now, and not playing just a whole bunch of licks or this and that you figure out before, but just going for a certain thing and not being afraid to take maybe like a certain chance. And sometimes it won't sound good because of that chance, but that sometimes can be really rewarding. And
yeah.
Really create the music. So that's kind of like what I like, doing what I do, because I'm able to do that in jazz. In some other styles, it's not so free and not so much, So that's, I think I was drawn to jazz just because of that, the expression.
Did you have for the Inspired project? Did you have anybody take John's place, or is it just the three of you guys?
Well, now we're touring just three of us. Peter Bernstein, myself, and Lage Lund. Actually, for this European tour is going to be a Dutch player, Jesse Van Ruler, who's a phenomenal guitarist. I love his playing. He was one of the first guys who won a Thelonious Monk competition here in the United States. He was the first European who won it.
Wow.
And he actually got to play with Jim Hall. So he's doing this tour with us, and we're really looking forward to playing with him. But yeah, for now, no. I mean, it doesn't mean, that, we won't do it with 4 guitars again. But, now we're like doing just 3 guitars just for shows, and we'll see. And there's a lot of great guitar players. One of the guitar players I would love to bring in the project is Bill Frisell, who I love. His playing is great, and he's a huge Jim Hall fan too. And he was influenced with him. He recorded a great record with Jim Hall. Is a record that did on Artist Share, which is the same label as we did Inspired, and they did it's a double CD. One CD is just 2 of them playing guitars, and the other one is with rhythm section. And it's I highly recommend it too.
What's that called?
That one is called Hemispheres.
With Bill Frisell.
Hemispheres, Bill Frisell and Jim Hall. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Do you have any like side hustles besides conventional, Well, I mean, most musicians you have to nowadays,
Well, side hustle, I don't. I have to say I'm lucky enough I can make my living as a musician.
That's great.
I teach and I play, and that's what I do. So between those two, I'm able to, to make a living, support my family. So,
great.
I have to say I'm lucky in that sense. I don't have to do anything that's not related to the music.
Do you teach in person or online or both?
In person.
Okay.
Yeah, I do private lessons. I work at a couple of places. Actually, I have a music studio not too far from where I live, 3 blocks from here in Riverdale.
That's
and
great.
I give, private lessons there. And I also teach at the Music Conservatory in Westchester. I have some private students there. I also teach a couple of ensembles there. So yeah, between those two, I'm fairly busy,
Great.
teaching in the week, but it also gives me a freedom to perform in the night. Which is great. Yeah.
That is great. What were some of the bigger surprises for you, Raleigh? Like, when you first maybe started playing professionally on the business end of music?
Surprised how low the jazz gigs pay. That was definitely a surprise.
Well, let me ask you this. When I interviewed AG from Hungary, he said when communism was there, they made a lot more money.
Yeah.
Is that?
I think it's different. Also, I feel, well, maybe things are changing now, but I feel sometimes if you have a certain type of art, it's not as valued in the place where it comes from, as much as to go to the next place. So I feel a lot of times jazz festivals, jazz clubs in Europe would pay better than jazz clubs and jazz festivals here in the United States.
I understand.
And that was probably the biggest surprise for me, because, this is really one of the art forms that was, they created here. It came from here, same as blues, blues music and jazz music. And they're not as valued here, which is it's kind of sad because you have all these amazing artists who are, some of them are really struggling to make a living, and even though, there is chances to perform, it's not valued on the same level, respect and, I guess financial
compensation. Yeah. It's like when you're the out of town expert, you get paid more almost.
No, almost, right? Yeah.
That's a good point.
So it's strange, but yeah.
Any what were maybe some of the lower points or some of the bigger obstacles you've had to deal with over your career, and how'd you get through them?
Well, bigger obstacles, the lower points. Well, I guess, as you said, side hustle, the hustle being finding work as a jazz musician, especially living in New York, being from Serbia. So I kind of, fall in this weird category, like people from, let's say, Europe and Serbia, they look at me as, he really plays that American music. And people here say, he's really a Serbian guy. I'm kind of like in between, So the American musicians would hear my Serbian influence more, and then Serbian people would say, he really plays like an American, So I kind of
so
fall in this category, like in between.
Yeah.
And also another thing is there was never a Serbian jazz guitar player. I mean, there was never one period like here in the United States. It didn't happen before me. I didn't have anybody up, to call and ask, hey, what do you do, and how do you, and all those things. So it was kind of like, so there was, a little bit of a struggle, just to figure out what to do and how to make a living, how to find gigs, how to present yourself, how to be honest with yourself, what you're playing, so you go through this phase when you really want to play a certain type of jazz, and you don't want to be like really the artists that you respect and love, like American artists. But then you realize you're not them. Even though you love that music, you have to be honest who you are and kind of respect your influences, where you're coming from. And once I figured that out, it was a little bit easier for me, to be in touch with what I really am and who I am and what I also have to offer,
Right.
Like that's different than from anybody else. And I think once I found it was easier. And then actually I got to, connect with audiences more because, I offered something that's a little bit different than what's already there,
That's cool, man. Yeah. That's, was it tough to figure that out?
Well, yeah, sure. It was a process. Yeah. It's tough to figure out because, the whole reason I left Serbia, came to the United States because I wanted to be as a jazz musician from the United States. I really loved that music. So, I was trying as hard as I could to play like my idols here,
Yeah, of course. So
sure. Then after, so many years of going to school and practicing and learning this music, you realize, okay, well, that's how they did it. Now, how you going to do it, So sure, there was stuff, kind of try to, also trying to find really who you are musically. That's not an easy task. As they say, find your own voice.
Yes.
It's the most important thing and probably the hardest thing, but they can never do it. It just happens. You can perceive those things happening. It just happens, and you just hope. You hope you have a voice.
Do you play back in Serbia at all?
I don't. Unfortunately, I don't. I have to say. I guess it has to be one of those things. As we talked earlier, is like they're not that interested in me because I'm from there. Maybe that's the case. Yeah, it is. But especially because there's not many artists who work and live in the United States, play with the musicians that I play with. I did play a couple of times, but not like, for example, with my groups, and I didn't, I play with my wife, with Alma.
Oh, she's a musician.
She's a fantastic vocalist.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Oh, yeah.
That's really cool.
Oh, she's amazing, man. She's amazing. So I played with her a couple of times, and she's really great. She's a jazz vocalist. She also, I play on her last record. Finally, I made it. And I had the pleasure of producing it too. Actually, Doug Womble did a record with her, which is really great record. I highly recommend that one to your listeners and to you.
What's it called?
It's called Tonight. And it's just a duo, just Doug Womble and Alma, and they just did such a great record. They did some covers, which are so original, unusual. They did some like traditional Serbian stuff. They did like a cover of Bob Dylan, of Police, and Sade, and some Alma's original tunes. And it's a great record. I think you're gonna enjoy that.
And is her last name Micic as well?
Yeah. Her last
okay,
name
tonight,
Micic.
Alma Micic, M-I-C-I-C. I'll have to check that out. Thank you, man.
Yeah, so she performed there a few times. She performed at the Belgrade Jazz Festival. She performed at some, a couple of concert halls. And she actually had a huge hit in '90s. She sang this like was it almost like a dance music hit? Became like this the number one hit, and it's still played nowadays. So so she's very versatile as well. Like she can.
In what genre was that? In jazz?
It's like a dance music. I don't know.
Oh.
I guess dance music. There was like a beat to it. People used to listen to it in clubs. It was like a really, really big thing. And I didn't even know that was her.
That's so funny.
I had no idea. Yeah. And then some years ago, she kind of confessed because it was never like written who sang that tune. It was just this like a weird like name of the the artist. Because that song, I think, was it was made for some kind of event, like I don't know, Miss Teenage or something like really random. Something random like that. But it just became like so huge that it just blew up that nobody kind of expected it. And then like years later, she was kind of ashamed of it because it wasn't jazz. And she said like, you know what? I actually sang that. I'm like, oh my God, he sang that song, because everybody knows that song coming from Serbia or Yugoslavia. That was like the biggest hit in the 90s.
Wow.
And it was really funny. And then she was fine with it, like, of course, after. And then the funny thing is she was also one of the featured performers in Carnegie Hall in September.
Okay.
And she decided to do that song as an acoustic version. And it was great. People loved it. It was just
That's awesome,
so
man.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Do any of your kids play music?
Yeah, they do. They're all kind of musical. The oldest daughter, I guess she's the most in music. She's 16, and she plays a whole bunch of instruments. She plays bass, she plays guitar, she plays ukulele, she plays piano and flute, and she's very talented. She actually wrote music when she was 10 that was performed by New York Philharmonics.
Oh my God.
And she had a performance as a Lincoln Center. Yeah. So that was kind of like, wow, when we realized that she's really, really gifted. And then they invited her to be a part of what they call a Very Young Composers program at the Lincoln Center.
That's awesome.
That works for the New York Philharmonic. So she's been writing for them like for about 4 or 5 years. And she had performances in Carnegie Hall and Lincoln Center. They even played some of her music in Barbican in London. They would go for tours. So that was kind of like wild,
That's really cool.
So yeah, she's really gifted musically, but it's like way past above my level. I can't, I can't figure it out. Like,
hey,
how do you hear those harmonies? How do you hear those orchestrate? She orchestrated the whole thing. That was the thing. She was just a little kid. 10. You're kidding me? But they were cool. They had this, program, and they would send a mentor once a week to our house for like 2 months to teach her the orchestration, basically the range of each instrument, so she can orchestrate her piece for the 80-piece orchestra.
That's crazy, man.
She had to do everything by herself, So she had to learn what the range of oboe is, and the French horn and this and that, and she had to put it all together. And she did, and it sounded like really amazing. Everybody was kind of blown away. And then that piece she wrote is like as a roller coaster ride. She went one when we took her out, like in Orlando, like one of those parks,
Disney or something.
Was that
Disney World?
Yeah, I forgot where it was.
Epcot?
Disney World or Universal or one of those places. Yeah. And she went to a roller coaster ride, and she wrote a piece which is kind of like a roller coaster ride, which is really amazing. And the whole orchestra is on the roller coaster ride. And there's one point that there's descent, and then she has like, the trombones going, glissando, and then the rest of the orchestra screaming like, ah,
That's so
it was
cool,
really
man.
funny. And then like, the first violin from the, Philharmonic says, oh, thank you so much. I always wanted to scream like for the last 20 years.
That's great, man.
You made my dream come true. It was hilarious,
That's really cool. What a big accomplishment, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, so she's pretty
cool.
gifted, and the youngest one, he plays the piano a little bit. He's only 8, and the middle one played the violin for a little bit, but she's not. I mean, she sings pretty well, but I don't know if she wants to be in music or not. I mean, we both of us being musicians, we really don't want to push our kids into that.
Yeah, I get it.
I don't want to be one of those parents. Oh, sit down and practice and this and that. I think everybody has to discover it themselves and find their own pet and also find their own love for it. If it's because that way it will stick with you forever, and otherwise if you put something on your kid, it's probably just going to do the opposite.
No, it is. You can't force anything on anybody, children or adults. If you like it, you like it. You can't force someone to like something. Yeah. It's crazy, man. No, I agree with you. So let me ask you, if you had to go back and give advice to yourself, younger Raleigh, what advice would you have given to yourself that would have made your life easier in some way or less stressful? What would you have told yourself?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I still have to figure it out, I guess.
No, that's great. That's great.
I don't know. I mean, I can say, oh yeah, sure, practice more. That would be that.
I don't think that was it.
It's funny because I always have words of my guitar teacher who said, "You are your mistakes." That's what he said, and it took me a while to figure out what he meant by that. You're your mistakes, but it really makes sense. Not just in a sense that. You learn from your mistakes and you become who you are because you make mistakes.
Yeah.
But it's also those unplanned things that you made mistakes is really who you really are. It comes out like that as well. I don't know if it makes sense to you, but it kind of made sense to me, to realize that as well. The certain mistakes you made are yours because who you are,
Well, it contributes to
contributes to it. Yeah. Maybe, even if you don't learn from it, it's kind of who you are. So everything else that you plan is not who you are. It's sort of like that, you know?
I get it. No, I totally get it, man. I believe in that. You can't, because you'd be different if you hadn't made those mistakes.
Yeah.
I get it. Hey, let's talk about guitars for a few minutes.
Sure.
What's your go-to guitar, and what other two guitars might round out your top three?
Oh, I love that question. So, my top guitar right now is Roger Sadowski guitar, and I play his SS15. It's beautiful. It's thin line hollow body guitar.
It's gorgeous.
I fell in love with it a few years back, and I got it, and I love his guitars. He's one of the top guitar makers in the world. Luthiers, and he makes also amazing electric basses. He's really well known for that and renowned. So that's my number one guitar. I love it. It's so beautiful, so versatile, so well balanced. It resonates beautifully and just gives me what I, really what I need. It's so easy to play on too.
Do you have two humbuckers in there?
No, there's only one. There's only one pickup, but the neck pickup. There's no bridge pickup. I'm a jazz player.
Yeah.
You said it's dark. And the other two, the second one has to be my Gibson. I have a 1966 ES330 Gibson, which is a guitar that not many people know, but it's a great guitar. It looks like 335, but it's actually very different. Just by looks similar, but what it is, it's completely different. It's a hollow body. It's a thin line. It has a P90s instead of humbuckers, and that's a great guitar. People might know that guitar because Epiphone Casino, which Beatles played, was made based on that guitar, that Gibson guitar. So it looks exactly the same as Epiphone Casino. And some of the players that played it in jazz, Grant Green, great player, he used to play 330. Not many people play it. And I guess the third one has to be my nylon string classical guitar that I have. It's a very special instrument. It's Conte Hermanos from Madrid, Spain. Conte Hermanos, they're Conte brothers. They're two brothers that made famous flamenco guitars. They made guitars for Paco de Lucia, all, who's who of flamenco music. And I got it not too long ago. Actually, it's one of the last guitars they made together because they got, they kind of separated and got into argument and stopped producing guitars together. One of them still makes guitar, the other one doesn't. But it's great because it was kind of exactly what I needed. It has a cutaway, which is very unusual for, of course, nylon string guitars for flamenco. It has also built-in pickup and a built-in mic, which is, it's great. But I could play it, and at the bigger stages without dealing with the feedback or without using the microphone on the stage. So I can use actually amp as a monitor for myself and, to hear what I'm playing. And I got that actually when I was recording with Tom Harrell. You know, we were touring, and I realized the guitar I was using wasn't cutting it. You know, wasn't good enough. You know, for the stages, like bigger stages. And I was really happy. You know, once I got that guitar, it's just a really beautiful instrument. So those are my top three. Yeah.
Did you buy that in Spain?
No, I actually bought it here in New York. I ordered it here. Yeah,
okay.
Because there's a guy who worked with them, and then they talked back and forth, and I got it. So it was great. Yeah.
Your Sadowski's a beautiful looking guitar, man. I love the color of it, and it just sounds wonderful, man.
Yeah, thank you. It is. Yeah, I feel the same way.
I hope so, because I know what those things cost. So trust me, you got to feel. Oh, I know they are. I know.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite guitar player?
Yeah, I guess if I were to pick one, it would be Jim Hall. As I mentioned, that's my probably the biggest influence. But there's so many good ones. You know, I have to say, I love so many guitar players. I enjoy a different style. I mean, like, Paco de Lucia, talking about, great guitarist. I love his playing is unbelievable. There's so many good ones,
Do you know a guy in New York? Do you know Smokey Hormel?
No, I don't. Although I heard about him. Yeah.
Yeah, he's in Brooklyn. If I remember correctly, he grew up and Paco de Lucia was at a party of his or something. He had this eclectic family where he had all these celebrities, and I think he had a story about that in his interview. It was a while ago.
I recently played with a great Brazilian guitar player, Guilherme Monteiro, and he mentioned him. He was like, "Oh, we got to go and check him out in Brooklyn." So I think
you should. He's pretty interesting player. He's a very, very good player, man, and he's done he's done everything.
Yeah.
Name a couple of players that you've enjoyed playing with, jamming with, if you have done any of that with other guitar players.
The other guitar players?
Yeah.
So many. I also have a series for last 4 years. I've been doing this series called Guitar Times 2 series, and it's basically a guitar duos. I invited different guests. So I play with, most of the jazz guitarists here from New York, and, I love playing with Peter Bernstein. He's definitely one of my favorite artists, from contemporaries. I love Lagerlund as well. I play with, so many. Tonight I'm playing with Gene Bertocchini, who was fantastic. Gene is really a master. He used to play with, Wayne Shorter and Nancy Wilson, and, he's a great player. So I'm actually playing with him tonight.
Where are you playing?
Now we do this, here actually in Riverdale, where I live. We're doing this series here. It was in a village, and then there was in the Upper West Side. Now I have it even closer to home, so I'm so happy.
Great.
I don't have to go far, I don't have to look for parking. I can walk. So it's there, and many different players. I mean, who played it? Cheryl did quite a few of those. Cheryl Bailey, Jack Wilkins, Brad Shepik, Mike Moreno, Guilherme Monteiro, Dave Stryker, a great guitar player. I mean, there's so many. So many. I mean, I'm sure, I'm missing a lot now, like Paul Bollenbeck, Joe Cohen. It's just who's who of jazz guitar. I was lucky enough to get and play with them. Yeah.
Have you played with Oz?
No, I never played with Oz. No.
Really?
No.
I thought Oz has played with every human being, every guitar player. He's always playing with everybody. So, what was the best guitar and the best amp that you've ever owned?
Ever owned? Well, I would say the Rogers guitar that I have now is probably the best guitar I ever owned. Amp, I don't know. I have a Twin that I really like. I have a Twin Reverb. It's from the early 70s, like a 72, but it's been modified to a blackface.
Okay.
Twin, and it sounds really good. I don't use it as much because it's so heavy. So I just don't want to carry it around. I use it sometimes for studio more than anything. I have a Polytone that I use all the time. It's super light, easy to carry, sounds great. I've even used it in studio many times. It's one of those jazz guitar amps. I don't think they make them anymore, but they're great amps. I love them. I have a couple of Polytones. I have one that's 12-inch. I have another one that's a little bit bigger, like a 15-inch speaker. And I mean, I have a couple of different amps. I have one vintage amp, Panoramic, it's called. Like nobody knows about it, but it's a great tube amp. You know, it has like those German tubes, and it's fantastic. Actually, Steve Cardenas uses that also. I've seen him use that amp, but I don't know. So yeah, there are some. I have to say, one of my favorite amps would be like, you know, Deluxe Reverb, like from the early 60s. I think that's probably my favorite, you know.
That's pretty common.
Yeah, those are the great sounding amps, yeah.
Desert Island Discs, no particular order. What would be your top 3?
Ooh, that's tough.
Just for today, man. You could change tomorrow. Just for
all
like
right.
now.
Well, number 1, Chet Baker. Chet Baker Sings record, which is like from early 50s. It's the first record he sang on. That's like probably my favorite record of all time. I loved it. I love Chet Baker in general. His, you know, lyricism, musicality was just like unbelievable. So that would be like one of the records. Another record would be Pat Metheny and Charlie Hayden, Beyond Missouri Sky. That's a beautiful record. Just very touching and very melodic. They play, you know, acoustically, and it's just a great, great record. It's one of those special records. Probably any of Jim Hall records, as many I can grab and fit in my case if I have a chance to do that, you know.
Sure.
And of course, like Miles Davis, you know, I have to pick up. It's like, you know, it's a classic, but I have to say that, you know, Kind of Blue is still like, it does it for me every time I hear it. It just, you know, it has that, you know, vibe that, you know, takes you someplace else. Yeah.
Most important things that you've learned about yourself, Raleigh, throughout your career and through life in general?
And just be honest to yourself, what you want, you know, and what makes you happy, and then do it. You know, just be good to other people and, you know, give as much as you can, I think, because that makes you more happy. I think that's what it is, really.
You know, one of the reasons I always like talking to people from other countries is the practical logic that people from different parts of the world have is always seems it's simpler. It's like, I don't know, I can't explain it.
It's funny that you say that. You know, one of the things that I thought when I moved to the United States, and I still do, is that people here are very practical. Like so much more practical than where I come from. Like it's, you know, like really like, oh, it's kind of like, you know, just do it, you know, that kind of thing. Like, oh, okay, let's do it, you know, because there's where I come from is like a lot of like theories and people talk about it, but when it comes to doing it, it takes forever, you know. And it's funny to say it's like, you know, you think it's the opposite, but I feel that people here are very, you know, practical.
Well, you're in New York. Again, that's a New York thing, I think, some of that.
Maybe, but I don't know. I think, you know, people here are pretty practical. Yeah.
I just like your logic has been like very honest and simple. And I like hearing that. You know, it's a good, you know, I always try to, like this show is, I always try to learn something for me and the listeners, and everybody has something to offer. And I always feel like people from other countries, there's a simplicity somehow, like the same thing that you're maybe it's just a delivery, or I don't know, but I've always felt like that. I've always wanted to talk to people from other countries, even as a kid, because I was like, man.
Well, I think it has to be with the openness, like, you know, like, because you're open to other things. If you're open, things happen and you feel better about it, you know. Yeah. So maybe because something is different than who you are, you perceive a different way. Maybe that's why I perceive, you know, here, you know, American people, what you perceive Europeans to be. You know, just because it's kind of a different thing. But when you're open to it and in tune with it, it's great, you know. It's great, yeah. Yeah,
maybe I've always been very open and tuned to it, and I always like that. You know, you have something, I just think I could gain a lot from talking to someone from a different place, because it's different, you know?
Yeah, it's a different perspective.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, taking a vacation every time, if you just travel, even for vacation, change of scenery gives you a different perspective. You come back and you think about things differently, you know? So I think it's a healthy way to live, you know, just to be able to surround yourself with people with a different viewpoints even, and, you know, place where they're coming from, and, you know, and just different culturally, and, you know, try to, you know, not to try to change somebody, but get something out of that. You know? And
I have my personal thought. I don't happen to, I'm against dogma. I don't really think there is a right, me personally, I don't think there is a right or wrong. I mean, sure, there's a right way to treat people and like stuff like that, but I don't think like ideology and thought, I think everybody is different and they have a right to have, I don't think anybody could sit and say, that's why this whole stupid bullshit with politics is just like repulsive to me, because everybody's like, I'm right, you're wrong. And I'm like, well, how the hell can you say you're right when you have totally different, you're right for you. And that's totally cool.
Right. Well, trying to make somebody be what they're not is never going to work.
That's not really, that's not like a good basis for a healthy anything.
Right.
And I always like being,
especially if the other person is happy, if there's somebody who's not happy and you're trying to help them, that's a different thing. But if somebody's happy with who they are, it's like,
right. But you're going to tell them they're wrong. You're going to tell them they're wrong. It's like, I remember like going the elections, whenever they were, not this last ones, but president, I guess a couple of years ago, I was in the gym and a guy comes over to me and he starts talking about why I should vote for his platform. I said, man, you've got to be kidding me. I said, do you think you're going to convince someone in between sets to, like, why are you talking about this here?
Well, listen, I'm sure he does. Otherwise he wouldn't do it.
I'm like, I'm here to relax.
I'm sure there's some people who are, convinced by that. So, I don't know. I don't know. I honestly have to say, I don't like politics in general. I try to stay away from it as far as I can. I try not to follow news, it's just like, I kind of like did it early on, like in 1999, there was bombing of Serbia and I was actually living here. And it was a very, very hard time for me, like it was just like, somebody's bombing your country and and kind of decided like to stay away from the media. You see how media is biased, in any country,
Sure.
I'm not talking about just here, but anywhere, like, there's always two sides of each story, and what you're getting served is not necessarily what is going on.
Yeah.
And it just like takes a lot out of you, when you start thinking about those things and, stressing about those things, I mean, I think, as far as like, voting, everybody should vote and it's great to have, that opportunity, but just like on a daily basis, I really can't, I can't do the politics.
I haven't watched television or news rather in about 35 years.
Yeah, there you go.
I just stopped it.
To do. Yeah,
I just don't want it. It's just negative shit that I don't want to.
It really is. Doesn't take you anywhere. It really doesn't take you anywhere. It doesn't do anything.
Favorite New York City food?
Ooh, that's not a tough one. It's so many, so many good ones here. Yeah, that's the thing about New York is there's so many great places. I think that kind of variety is probably my favorite thing about New York food. It's just being able to get like the best type of restaurants from any part of the world here, and they do a little spin, the New York spin on those foods as well. You can get like some great, great food. It's like, but I have to say, I get down in the Village. There's a couple of places, they're always great. But I'm not going to single out any one of them because I think this is the variety that really makes it New York.
Yeah, I like eating down the Village. Everything's cool there, man.
Yeah.
You know what? There was a place in the East Village. They closed it like 3 or 4 years ago. It was like Middle Eastern food. They had a full bar. I forgot what it was called. It was an outdoor patio, man. It was such a cool place, and they closed it. I don't remember the name of it. Man, it was awesome. I'll miss that place.
I'm not sure which one. There's quite a few, right? But I'm not sure which one is.
It's great.
Yeah, you're thinking, but there's some great places, Great. Depends what kind of food you like, But there's good food for everything,
How about the flip side? What Serbian food do you miss the most?
I don't know. Like I miss this thing. Well, there's actually a great Serbian restaurant in New York.
That's cool.
So it kind of helps you not to miss it. It's called Kafana. And it's in East Village between the 7th and 8th Street on Avenue C. Actually, I highly recommend it. That's probably my favorite place. If anybody wants to go there, they have great food. They actually have, I believe they're like top 100 restaurants in the world. They have a Michelin star, but it's super laid back. Like it's so laid back, and the food is unbelievable. It's a really great place to go to. They have, cevapi, which is like a traditional meat dish, like a small sausage-like looking mincemeat. It's phenomenal. They have those cheese pies, spinach pies. They have like a whole bunch of different meats that we make, and it's just really great place.
That's cool, man. So you don't miss any Serbian food?
Not really.
Because you get
Alma, my wife, she's Serbian, so she's a really good cook.
That's cool,
so,
man.
Yeah.
Tell me something about yourself people would either be surprised to hear or might find a little odd.
I'm not sure. You probably have to ask somebody else about it.
Well, the punk rock band thing was pretty cool. I
guess I told you a couple of things that people probably didn't know before.
That was cool, man.
Yeah.
Who's had the biggest influence on your life, both musically and personally?
Well, probably my parents. I mean, that's easy, right? My parents probably had the most, I love my parents. I look up to them, and they're, really great human beings, and they were very supportive, no matter what I did, professionally, and they're great. And also my wife, I think, in the last, 18 years we've been married. Like, it's really she's been a huge influence on me. She's a great person and I love her, and it's just great to have somebody in your life, who makes you a better person.
Yeah, man, I know that feeling. That's good.
Yeah.
There's nothing like it. What's the most important thing your dad taught you?
Most important thing? I guess value life and value people you're surrounded with in your life, and I think that's one of the most important things.
How about your mom? Most important thing she taught you?
I guess it's the same thing, really. The same thing. I have to say, it's really they have a good insight of a larger picture that sometimes I forget, And, it's like, they have a good way of, being themselves, who they really are, and being honest to everybody else about it too. And, it just gives you a different perspective.
Man, I really dig that about you, because you've said that several times about how important it is to be authentic in all aspects of what you're doing. And I like that in the people.
Well, I believe that you cannot be good to other people if you're not happy with yourself. Yeah. You know what I mean?
100%.
And if you're not honest to yourself, you're not going to be happy. So how can you be, so it's really simple in certain ways, like it really makes sense,
Yeah. To get there is not so simple, but in theory it is.
Well, even it is, as we're talking about the bigger picture, it's kind of not hard to be what you really are, and just, ask yourself, am I doing the most I can?
Yeah.
Am I, it's, do I really love certain thing? And, just ask some important questions to yourself, and the answers are pretty easy, but sometimes we want to ignore it because maybe they're not the easiest route we can take, Yeah. But it's pretty obvious.
Has your life been different than what you'd imagined?
I don't know. I have to say I didn't imagine how my life is going to be. I still don't. I think one thing that I have that makes it easier, that I really try to live in the moment. I try to live today and don't think too much about the past and too much about the future. Of course, I have to think, I have a family, I have to think about the future and the past, but to be really to be in the moment, you know? Yeah, that's, I think, really what counts.
I agree with you, man. You have any interests outside of music or hobbies?
Hobbies, interest? Well, yeah, I love some sports. I love skiing. I'm an avid skier. I love swimming. I don't know. I like beer. It's my favorite drink.
That's cool.
And there's some great brewers now in Bronx, and there's a lot of great microbrewers now happening in the United States, which I love.
Yeah.
I love IPA. And it's great to see that whole, beer boom here in the United States the last few years. I always kind of felt jealous of Europe having, so many types of beers, and he was just like 3, But now that's changing, so that's great.
Big time, man.
Yeah.
What's your favorite place you've traveled?
Ooh, that's a tough one too. There's so many beautiful places I've been to, but I have to say maybe the place in northwest of Spain, in part of called Galicia. The place is called Santiago de Compostela. It's probably one of my favorite places I've been to.
Why is that?
It's a very special place. I mean, actually, the guy that I'm recording with, he's from there, Abercrombie, the piano player, and I went there to visit him. I remember I actually met Abe during my studies at Berklee. He was there at the same time. And we didn't see each other for a long time, and we reconnected. But I remember when I was in studies, he was really in love where he's coming from, like really like talking about it all the time. I was like, oh, it must be like some special place. Or this guy's completely crazy. And I went there. I had a chance to go there with Alma, and it was just like really one of those special places. It's like, a medieval town, like the old town, like, in this stone buildings and streets, and it just has this amazing feeling. Actually, it's one of those second pilgrimage site also. There's this big cathedral of St. James, I believe. Yeah, it's like in the part of that. So a lot of people like do the pilgrimage there. But it's a very special place. It's just beautiful, and it has such a cross between like the history and old culture and the brand new culture. The food is unbelievable. If you like the seafood, like they have like some of the best seafood, and it's great because they have this traditional cuisine, and then they have this new influx of like new chefs, the modern spin on that. So you're like this old town, but eating like a really hip, nice food, and it's just like it's a great place. It's very special, and it's hard to describe it.
Santiago De Compostela. Okay,
yeah.
Very cool, man. 2 more questions, and I really appreciate your time. Toughest decision that you ever had to make, or most difficult thing you've had to do?
Toughest decision I have to make. I don't know. I guess just not to give up. Not to give up doing what you're doing, in those hard moments, it's just when you have to, make a living or make decisions, and just keep at it, and being what you want to be. That's probably like, the toughest decision. But also the easiest. When you think about it, it's like, okay, I mean, I feel that I honestly feel that I could have been a lot of different things. I don't feel like, some people say, if I don't play guitar, I don't know anything else. I wouldn't be able to do anything. I don't feel it that way. I never felt that way. I just had a huge love for guitar, but I always felt that I could be a lot of different things, I mean, I'm a visual person. I like designing, so it comes easy. I did the design couple of my own covers for the albums. I did some other people's too. I would design like a website. It's very easy for me, or make a poster, and I love those things. Working on a computer or just talking to people. I felt I could be many different things, but. Again, it's going back to really what really moves you, who you really are.
That's really good. That's great, man. And last question: what's been the biggest change in your personality, Raleigh, over the last 10 years?
I think I mellowed out a lot. I was way more intense, I think. But I think I mellow out in a good way. Being more tolerant and more patient. I was always a little bit patient, sure. But, I was a little bit more intense, I have to say. I guess that comes with the age, too,
Yeah, for sure, man. Dude, I can't thank you enough for everything. Let me tell people where to find you. First of all, it's Rale Micic. And again, it's RaleMicic.com. He's a phenomenal player. He's just got a really beautiful, really warm, soulful tone. And check him out in the city. He does gigs often. He's got a gig coming up on February 4th, which gives you plenty of time from the time you're hearing this. It's early February. He's doing that Inspired show with Lage Lund and Peter Bernstein. And that's down at the Zinc Bar. And that was written up last year when they did this as one of the best shows that they ever had there. And you can also find him on Facebook and Instagram, and you can check out his music on iTunes as well as at his website. And where do you give lessons at again, if people want to connect with you?
Yeah, I mean, they can reach out to me directly or
contact form on your website.
Yeah, there's an email
great.
contact. They can send me an email. Yeah.
Great, man. To take lessons from this guy would be a blessing. So jump on that. Thanks for everything, man. I look forward to when your next album comes out. You come on, we'll talk about it, and that'll be great.
My pleasure. Thanks for doing it. This was really fun.
Good. I really appreciate your time, Raleigh, and good luck at the when you're doing that Inspired show.
Thank you. Thanks so much, man.
Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this interview, please share it with a friend on your social media channels. We certainly appreciate your support with that. And thanks so much to Rale Micic for spending time with us. I really appreciate it. Please check him out online. Again, it's RaleMicic.com. Make sure you go to the homepage of everyonelovesguitar.com, sign up to get on our newsletter list so you and I can connect. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have some fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.